we all want, of course, as many healthy, active, fun years in retirement as possible. So, in today's video, I'm going to give you a handful of ways to recapture 6, 7, 8 more years in retirement. Why 8? Because 5, we want more than 5, and 10 is a big stretch. But I do think 7 or 8 years is very possible. So let's jump in and talk about. First, I want to thank Chapter for sponsoring this video. More about Chapter in a minute. But really, we need to look at the front end and the back end. There's two ways to get more time in retirement. One is if you're able to retire sooner, that's what I call the front end. And then on the back end, if we're able to keep more years where we're healthy, active, and we're mentally acute, and we have our vitality. So let's start off with the front end. And really looking at the front end has to do with three things. The first, of course, is your savings. How much do you have saved for retirement? And the analogy that our parents gave us, hey, save 10% and you'll be okay. For many of us, unfortunately, that's not going to be enough. So if we can save more than 10%, that's one way to capture a couple extra years of your healthiest, most active time. Now, if you can retire at 58 instead of 65, you've already got those 7 years. But in order to do that, we're going to have to be good at saving, and we're also going to have to be flexible with our mindset. And that's the second key point, is to be flexible. To the extent we can be flexible with what does retirement look like for us? Are we willing to adjust once we're in retirement in case unknown things happen? So that's one area that mindset helps us, right? Is being flexible with, where we live, whether we downsize or we don't downsize, whether we go on expensive vacation or maybe for a couple of years we don't do expensive vacation. We still have a lot of fun, but we're flexible in how much money that we spend. So if your mindset is flexible, that can honestly give you a couple extra years of retirement. And the other thing that can give you a couple extra years of retirement regarding your mindset is if you can go with the flow, if you can go with the ups and downs that are inherent in the stock market, right? Volatility, the fluctuation in the stock market, that is a feature of the stock market. It's not a bug, and it's likely never going away. And if we have the right mindset where if the market's down 20, 25%, 30% or more, and I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball, but over a 30, 40-year period, is it likely there's going to be a 20, 30, maybe 40% or more correction in the stock market during that period of time? I think it is. Again, I don't know, but I do think that there's a decent chance. So if you can be flexible with how you react to that, and if you can keep your mindset from going from worrying, hey, I don't like the fact the stock market's down. If you can go from that, from worrying, if you can keep yourself from getting to angst, because the problem with angst, that's that pit in your stomach and you can't sleep at night. The problem with that is you become susceptible to being a forced seller in a down market. So we talked about savings, we talked about mindset. The other one is expenses. Looking at our expenses, what does retirement look like to you? Many people are surprised when I tell them as a financial advisor, I'm now retired. But the first question I would ask people that say, would ask me, do I have enough money to retire? The first question was not how much money do you have, but it's what does retirement look like for you? What do those expenses look like? And I'll share with you that there's two expenses that people dramatically underestimate. One is taxes. We're going to talk about that in a bit. But the other one is healthcare expenses. According to Fidelity, the average person at age 65 is looking at $165,000 for an individual, $330,000 for a couple. From the time they're 65 for the remaining of their lifetime, in aggregate, $165,000 for a person, in costs that are in addition to the cost that what Medicare covers. And so our healthcare decisions, our Medicare decisions are really important. And that's why I'm proud to partner with today's sponsor, which is Chapter. Chapter helps people make good decisions regarding their Medicare enrollment, both initially and later on. I do think, for sure, you should check with a Medicare advisor before you first get on Medicare, but I also think every year you wanna check and you wanna make sure that whoever you're using for that advice has access to the latest data, has a team that has a culture of putting the client first, and that's why I'm proud to partner with today's sponsor, Chapter. At this QR code here, you can take a short, brief, Medicare quiz to gauge how quickly and how well you're prepared for retirement, and you'll also get access for free to one of the best books on Medicare that I've ever read. It's called It's Not That Complicated by Ari Parker. Again, you can get it here. You can also call the phone number that you see on your screen here. Thank you, Chapter, for sponsoring this video. So we talked about the front end. Now let's talk about the back end, right? We can retire early, but what about the back end? How can we get an extra 4, 5, 6 years on the back end? And just like real estate is about three things, right? Location, location, location. It's the same thing with retirement. Once we've retired, it really comes down to health, health, and health. So let's talk about it. The first thing I want to talk about is just our physical health. Our physical health in retirement. You know, what are we doing to stay healthy? And we can only do so much. Yes, our genetics do play a role, but there's a lot that we can do, right? We can, and I'm not a doctor. This isn't medical advice, and I should also say none of this is financial advice either. But from a physical standpoint, I encourage you to invest in your health, in your physical health. So, whatever you do to stay fit, for me personally, one day I run a 5K. The next day I go to the gym and I lift heavy things, I lift weights. And then the third day I do yoga for the stretches because for me, the aches and pains of getting older, yoga really helps keep those in bay. So we've got our physical health. Part of that's also eating right and taking the time and investing the money to eat well as opposed to junk food. The next one is mental, keeping our mental health in place and not letting, we all want to have as much good years in retirement as possible, but if we're depressed the whole time, very few of us are like, "Oh, I want more of those depressed years." So whatever we need to do to stay in good mental health, I encourage you to spend the time and effort to do that. And then as I talked, there's really two surprises. We talked about one of those healthcare. Again, the sponsor here, Chapter, you can get that free Medicare book or call the phone number on the screen here. But the other one is taxes. So healthcare expenses are a big surprise, and taxes can be a big surprise. And I encourage you to work with an accountant uh, to help you think through. We've got these retirement accounts. We have these accounts where we got a tax break when we put money in, but unfortunately now it's likely time to pay the piper. And so work with an accountant, work with a financial planner. If you're somebody that's never going to do those two, I encourage you to use software that's designed to help you think about that. Software that I like for doing your own financial plan. It used to be called New Retirement. It's now called Bolden. You can sign up for Bolden at this link here. The video is not sponsored by Bolden. It's sponsored by Chapter. But if you use this link, it is an affiliate link and you'll be supporting this channel. So if you like this video, the YouTube algorithm says this is the next video of mine specifically for you that you should watch next. Thanks for watching this one. Bye-bye.